Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your boy Luke here with another fun YouTube tutorial showing you guys how to do some iOS app coding, or in this case, some Android app coding. Since I got it working in my MacBook finally, unlike our walkthrough today, it turns out I had to download the new version of Xcode, download the new version of Mac OS, download the newest CLI tools, and then download the build tools for Xcode after the simulator failed to launch the first time. I did this all by Googling and, as usual, turning it off and on again to make it finally work. Then I headed over to my PC since it had the better recording setup, and I was wondering if I could also figure out my Android device. Now, for you guys on Macs, which I think is most of y'all at the moment, if you just download Xcode and the simulator and all the tools that come with it, it works out of the box very easily for both the React Native CLI and the Expo app. For Android users, I think there's one of y'all that's on PC, you'll have a bit more of a difficult time. What you have to do is download Android Studio and set up what's called an AVD, or Android Virtual Device. You have to set it up and have it running first in the background, whereas you don't do that on iOS. So when I had to learn how to do this on my PC, it was a fiasco. As you can see, I have it up and running right here, and I have it. Expo will automatically download itself as an app on your AVD, so that's really nice. I have a reference guide on how to do this, but you can also hit me up in a one-to-one or ask me some questions in our Catalyst channels, and I'll be happy to help you out where I can. So I have it up and running. I have the new CLI tools installed, and let's get this show on the road, shall we? And again, because we're coding in React Native, the entire idea is we can have one code base that handles both Android and iOS devices. So what I'm coding here on Android, beyond the margins and padding and sizing of certain things, the idea will be the same thing between both this and your iOS apps. So let's begin. I'm going to type expo, as it's the new CLI tools I started. We're going to type expo init. And create React Native app, aka CRNA, is built on top of Expo, and even their documentation says you can pop in and just use the Expo CLI tool to create a new React Native app. So I'm just going to go with Expo, and I'm probably going to update these references later to reflect this as well. So project name, let's call it React Native Fun, kind of like I tried to this morning before it blew up in my face. We're going to go ahead and choose a blank project to get up and going here, and as we watch our build tools go here, it'll build up a React Native project from scratch with an Android build and an iOS build, depending on what we need. And Expo provides some really cool tools to get up and running out of the box really quickly, but you have to do some building and ejecting out of their framework in order to actually deploy this to the store. So before I actually run it, we're going to pop in here and open up our code editor so I can actually begin editing app.js, and you'll see the reflected changes in the app up there above me in this recording. Coming back here, everything should be installed and ready to go, so let's see what the hell happens. Expo start. If you have an Android device and have Expo installed from the Google Play Store, like a physical device, you can actually scan the QR code and it'll automatically load onto the app. Quite cool. Mac users, you can't do that, unfortunately. You'll have to not only download Xcode. All right, cool. There we go. Sorry, a pop-up just came up on my Google Chrome browser, which is the Metro bundler, which you guys see, and it blocked my view of what I'm recording. So Android users can actually scan this here QR code and get it up and running on their app and their Android phone in no time. Unfortunately, iOS users will have to download the Expo client app, sign in with an account, and then link their account to this little simulator here, or not the simulator, the Expo code. So what's going to happen is you can actually send yourself a link that you click that opens up your app in your Expo client, but you can no longer write an app and have somebody else scan the QR code and read it. Unfortunate, but say levy. We'll have to handle. We're more interested in how to code an iOS app than actually how to get it out there and deploying and messing on people's physical devices. But nevertheless, I do like Expo because even if on iOS you can scan your own code on your own account and play with it on your own device. Therefore, you can test and see what it runs, like how it runs in an actual physical device. Because a lot of the times on simulators, the animations, screen transitions will run slowly because you're trying to simulate a phone on your computer, and it doesn't natively run as fast as it would on a physical device. So take that for what you will. So after all that rambling, you see it's created that QR code. I am charging an Android phone my dad gave me that was a hand-me-down, so I'm not ready for this right now. But I have the simulator already running, as you can see. It's above my head here. And Expo is like, okay, scan the QR code, hit E to send an email link for it, or we can try and hit A for the Android simulator. So I'm going to hit A. it's going to try and open the project on Android. So I have the virtual device up and running already, and it should recognize it. There it goes. I've tested this once before this recording, so I actually logged in to my own Expo account thinking I needed to do that. So you might have to register on their site anyway and make yourself an account so you can log in. So the simulator downloads Expo, and you can log into your own profile. Build, build, build. Finish, so again, kind of like with our React code, it bundles the JavaScript into a bundle.js, which is what it serves over to our simulator. And if you look right above me there, our Android device has open up app.js to start working on your app. Dope. I think we're in, y'all. So let's do something real obvious. Let's just edit this text, and we'll see if it auto refreshes. Haha, there it is. We got it, y'all. We're in. So like I was showing you guys earlier today, except now we can actually see the changes I'm talking about reflected in an actual app. Would be nice. Your divs are essentially replaced by what's called a view. These containers run off of a similar but different Flex styling than you're used to. Again, it just takes some playing around to get used to it. That's all it is. All your tags are all your paragraph and heading tags are replaced by this text tag. Style sheet will take the place of any kind of CSS files you used to use. However, they will be very similar to how you had to do inline React styling, where instead of doing the CSS properties of like background dash color, you do the one word camel case. That's typically a pretty good rule to follow. If you think of a CSS property you would like to try and change, either Google it with the keyword React Native, or just remove the hyphen and camel case the two words as if you would a JavaScript variable. And typically it's pretty close to what it should be. But there are some special cases with React Native where it's just not the same. So yeah, I mean, we're up and running with our very first app.js. And because it's called React Native, it's built on the React component class, which means we have, again, our lifecycle methods, a render and a return that returns not JSX this time, but like React Native code. So this has a view with a container that has some style, a plain text tag, and it closes that view. And just like React, it has to have one parent element that is returned from the component. You can't have two views as siblings, as it'll crash, just like it would in React if we had two divs next to each other. We had to wrap them either in a fragment or another div. Same thing here. So yeah, Flex is essentially saying take up the Flex 1 in particular, this right here, is saying take up the entirety of the visible screen, aka that's why the whole thing is white in the background color, and align items within that view, within that container, and justify content. Both those say center. So, align would be centered, and then justify in the middle, right? So center, center. So that's what puts the text in the middle there. And just as an example, let's change this from white to something like red. So hey, it has the entire container in Flex 1, aka everything is covered in red, right? And you guys would think you can specify something like color, like you would do in your body or your divs, and say color of anything inside here, I want to be color white. That won't work in React Native. So we're going to add the color property white, comma, and you'll notice it'll refresh, but the text has not changed. The simulators are also pretty good about helping you determine where your errors are, so it's actually kind of useful sometimes to read these. Invalid prop style key colors applied to a view. So views, like they say, deal with the box that something is going to be in displaying in, right? So you don't change the color of text inside a view tag like you might do in a div in React or HTML for that matter. So we're going to remove that color tag, and we're going to create a new object in our style sheet, and we're going to call it something like text style, right? And it's going to be another object like this, and this is where we can specify color white. And just because we coded this does not mean it automatically knows where to go. We have to supply a style up here. So we're going to do style equals JavaScript brackets, and it's going to be styles dot text style, like so. And now it should apply the white color to the text. Hey, it worked. Dope. That's awesome. Oh boy, that's really cool. Yeah, we're up and running finally. This is what I wanted to do in the walkthrough way earlier today, and this is really cool that we got it up and running now. So, I mean, at this point in the game, if you've gotten this far and have it running, dude, just spend some time and goof off and have fun with what you can do. Figure out the styling, look at the documentation, bring in some cool stuff in React Native to mess with. Put like 15 views next to each other and try and align them into a grid like you would using Bootstrap or something like that. Just start playing around with it. That's the best possible way to learn. Because it's built on React, again, if there is an element that doesn't have any middle text, you can actually then convert it down to a self-closing tag like so, and as you can see, it's still there in a big, nice red flex box. Now we're going to call that styles.container. I'm actually going to change it to styles.container1 here, like so. I'm going to just change it to be container1 because I want to have separate containers going on now, right? So we have container1, and then we're going to do a container2, as you can probably imagine. You probably already know where I'm going with this. We'll give it a flex1. Let's do like a background color of, how about green? Let's go for a Christmas theme here. Background color of green. Okay. Again, we just created the CSS for it, a style sheet for it. We haven't actually put it in there. So what we're going to do is copy this guy, and then we're going to paste one below it. And some of you are probably already screaming at me if you are very confident in your React skills, going, hey, you can't have two sibling elements. You just talked about that. And again, just confirmed. There's an error. It doesn't like that. And looking at the error, adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. So nothing we are not used to seeing, right? So let's just make another view, like so, that wraps these two containers for us. There we go. And now let's check out the results. Well, the whole thing is white. What happened? Well, these two are specified to have a flex1, which is fill all available space. But the available space is nothing because the outside view isn't specified to take up any space at all. So it's here, but we can't see anything, right? So what if we do this? So what if we go back to saying style equals, and haven't created this yet, so we're going to do styles.parent container, something like that, right? And then we'll go parent container is going to be an object. Don't forget the comma. I always forget that and throw myself an error there. And now let's give this guy a flex of 1 as well, and let's see what happens. Well, would you look at that? So again, the parent container is a flex 1, which means the entirety of our device's screen. Inside of that are two children that are siblings of container 1 and container 2. Both have flex of 1, and one has a background of red and a background of green. And because they're both flex 1, they're saying fill all available space available to this container. And so they equally split the size of the screen by half. Pretty cool. So what if we change, let's see, container 2 to be flex 2? Let's see what happens. So that tells green to take up more space compared to container 1, which is red. Flex 3, it should be even larger. Well, for some reason, there it goes. Okay. Yeah, interesting. So let's take that back to flex 1. Let's do the reverse. Let's do flex 2 on the red box. It's increasing in size. Flex 3 on the red box. Increasing in size. So cool. At flex 2 on both of them, let's see what happens, because it should, again, go back to half. So it just tells the view container exactly how much space to fill up to what's available to it. Pretty cool, right? We change that to 2 and 3. Again, it's just, with React Native especially, it just takes a lot of playing around to figure out what you want to do. And a lot of the times you won't be hard coding it like this. You will have very convenient UI kits that help you lay out your React Native apps quickly and cleanly without having to sit here and goof with flexes all day long. But again, it's more important that you understand what's going on. So take some time, add more containers. Let's do that. Let's keep playing with it to try and break it, mess it up, make some cool things happen. You know, we'll see what we can get going on here. So background color, I don't know. Let's do gold. Why not? There we go. Gold. So let's do this. We're going to create another one down yonder, and it's going to have a container 3 on it. Well, so looking at our code, we're saying 1, 3, and 1, so that makes sense that the green box is the largest, right? So again, if we also made container 2 to flex 1, it should be 3 equal size boxes. Yeah, pretty cool. And then check this out. By default, the flex direction is in columns. That's peculiar. So we have one, it looks like rows almost. So let's do this. On our parent container, because by default it's considered a column, let's change the flex direction to row, and let's see what happens. Interesting. Now the guys on the inside, their direction is in rows. And so they're now filling up all available vertical space up and down here and no longer side to side. All because we changed our flex direction to row from the default column. So just as an example, if I hardwire this back to column, which if I don't specify this is the default, that's the result. Back to row. Really funky. And that follows the same rule. So if I do container back to flex 3 on container 2, which is the green one, it'll fatten up. Interesting. Very interesting, huh? So now the green and the gold share the same amount of space while the other one has less. But if we go back to even by having them all flexed, pretty cool. Okay. Cool, so let's see, what else can we show off here? What if we try nesting container 3 inside of the first two? So let's remove this dude, see what the result is. Okay, a half and half screen. Now let's make, oh, that won't work, will it? I'll have to do this. Let's nest container 3 into container 1 just to make things really confusing now. Interesting, it's gone entirely. How? So where did it go? It's nested in there, it has a flex of 1, but why isn't it showing up anywhere? Well, let's try to make it show up somehow. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It's taking up the entirety of containers 1's space, so it's overwritten the entirety of red. So gold has a flex of 1, which says take up all available space to it. It's the child of the container 1, which should be red, but we no longer see red. So red is behind the gold, and then the gold is saying expand to the entirety of your parent container, which is the red container. So we can actually not even touch the flex on gold and make it smaller or bigger by adjusting the parent container. Well, would you look at that? So what happens if now we can add, let's say like just 20 margin to the red container, and it's sunk inside of the parent container, which is the white box taking up the whole screen. So red is still behind the gold, and now the gold is filling up to the size of red, aka it is slightly smaller here, and the red is still behind it. And this is just the margin and the original parent container, this guy, that we see back there, right? So let's take this margin and move it down to container 3, the gold guy. And now we should expect to see the gold shrink but still fill up all available space after margins taken into consideration. And now we should have a red border around it because the background container is the red guy. And now we should be able to see it. Well. It actually worked out like I planned this time. That never happens, right? For those that have been in class with me. For this entire cohort, along with future students looking at this, if they happen to come across my YouTube channel, will notice that it's typically never works the first time. And so like I'm actually surprised this is up and running now and I'm recording this video. Hooray! So yeah, I mean, get out there and have some fun, play with this stuff. I mean, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's add another one. We'll make it purple. We'll call it container 4. Again, there's an error because you can't have two style objects with the same thing. They have to be unique keys. Container 4. Oh, it needs a comma. There we go. Flex 1, margin of 20. And it's also, let's see, let's make it a child of the next container as well, like this. Okay? There we go. Now it's getting pretty wild, isn't it? Cool. So let's actually, you know what? Let's move it out like that. Close this guy. And then make this a child. So now we have two siblings that both have children. And now it's getting all kinds of nutty, isn't it? So let's go back to flex 1, and we should have two columns, yeah, with two other divs inside of it. And now it's getting real crazy. So again, like get out there and just goof off with this. This is essentially our Hello World demo. There's nothing fancy going on here. I mean, we can get. I don't even know this is going to appear at this point because I normally don't mess with it this badly. We're going to say, hey, this text tag is going to say, where am I? Look at that. It's up there. Interesting. Okay, it's in container 2, which is our green guy, so that makes sense. Container 2 doesn't have any kind of margin. It's just an entirety of the flex. And look at that. It's actually up in the toolbar, so we're going to have to specify a minimum margin from the top that accounts for the toolbar to make sure we actually don't sit up there inside like the battery and the Wi-Fi signal inside of our apps, right? So that's something you have to take into account when you're styling your React Native apps. But again, a lot of UI kits help you account for this and will handle it for you without you having to hard code it. Yeah, let's move this guy into one of the children containers. So container 4 will now have the text tag. And if you recall, container 4 is the purple guy, and there it is. And let's just give this guy style, and we'll say style dot text style again, text styles. That's funny. Text style. There we go. Cool. And let's say a color of white. Nope. Needs to be a string. And let's say a font size of 5 or something like that. Can't find variable style because it's styles.textstyle. That's why. Whoops. Oh, that's tiny. 50. Let's crank up this font size. Where am I? You're in this purple box, bro. Cool. Yeah, like I said, just get out here and have some fun. I mean, I have no idea what's happening. Well, I don't think we can. I think we can align self. I think that's a property we can do. Like I said, you'll have UI. Yeah, there we go. Align self center. Boom, got it. Is there a justify self? A lot of the time, your UI kits will help you organize all this stuff, so you won't actually have to know all the code itself. Nope. Justify self is not a valid style property. Well, let's see if there's a justify. There's align self. There's a justify. I mean, justify content makes sense. Align content, align self, middle, align items. Well, let's just add a justify content there. So instead of justify content or self, let's try justify content. Trying to get that to be in the middle of the view. Nope, I think we're gonna have to do this. We can align self with text center, but I don't think we can do it vertically unless we do something like this. It is inside of container 4, so container 4 will have justify content center. There we go. That's what I was looking to do. Dope. So yeah, that's it for this little walkthrough. Short and to the point. This is our Hello World application where we're going to start playing around with what React Native is. And in the next video, I'll bring in React Native, create React Native elements, and I will show you some cool components we can bring in and play with. So until then, ta-ta for now. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.